Okay, we're on Pesachim, Perek Zayin, Mishnah Dalet, fourth Mishnah in the seventh chapter of Pesachim. So our Mishnah is going to talk about Dvarim Ba'im B'tum'ah, korbanot that are offered in Tum'ah. So as we know, if the Korban Pesach, we're going to learn in two Mishnayot, in Mishnah Vav, that Nitma Kahal Orubo, that if most of the Kahal is tamei, then we offer, the Korban Pesach is offered, then Ya'aseh B'tumah. We've learned this before. The Korban Pesach is a Korban that's offered B'tumah. How do we know this? Let's look in there's a section, interestingly, in Bamidbar Perek. I think it's interesting. Okay. That talks about Pesach Sheni. Okay, so what happened was, Hashem said to Bnei Yisrael, V'yasu Bnei Yisrael Pesach b'moado. They're in the Shana Sheni, Chodesh HaRishon. This is the first Korban Pesach that they're offering in the Midbar ever in history outside of Mitzrayim. So God says, Barabas Ayom Bein Arbaim Ta'asu Oto. You should do all these things. V'yasu et Pesach b'Rishon, blah blah blah. You should do everything. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, great, no problem. What happened was, people came. V'ayu anashim asher hiyu tmeim l'nefesh adam. V'lo yachlu la'asot ha'Pesach b'yom. What about the people that were tamei? They came before Moshe and they said, Lama nigara livilti akiva korban Hashem b'moado. Why should we not be able to bring our Korban Pesach? Also, we're tamei, but what are we supposed to do? Right, as we know, Dabril b'nei Yisrael v'yot more. Says the Jewish people, Ish kiyet tamei l'nefesh. When a person is tamei l'nefesh, o b'derech v'choka, o l'lachem l'davrotechem v'asa Pesach l'Hashem. He's very far for your generations, forever. B'chodesh hasheni ba'arba'as hayom bein arba'im yasu oto. He should do it in the second month. That's what we call Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach. So therefore, that's the rule of Pesach Sheni. If somebody is tamei, let's go back to our Mishnah. Okay, now let's read the Bartanura. The Bartanura says, "En lecha betzibur korban ne'echal elei." There are 5 korbanot that we're going to see that are eaten. They're korban tzibur, not private korbanot, not my own personal korban shlamim, but public korbanot. Okay, that are ne'echal. These are ne'echal. Okay, but korban tzibur doche et hatuma. Korban tzibur is offered when the Bnei Yisrael are tamei. Diafinan mi Pesach. Okay, because we learn from Pesach to dichtibe b'moado, because it says b'moado. Let's look back to our pasuk. Now, the Torah says ish kiyat tamei l'nefesh. When a person is tamei l'nefesh, then he does Pesach Sheni. But if a community, the Kahati says, the Gemara says, learns that. But if the whole community is Pesach, if Rov HaTzibur is Tamei, then they do it Bizmano, as we're going to see in the future Mishnah. But, so now we know that Pesach is offered Ben Betuma, Ben Betara. Meaning, if most of Bnei Yisrael is Tamei like now, when we rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, Tuma is not the problem. The problem is not the Para Aduma, that we don't have a Para Aduma. The problem is we don't have access to the Beit HaMikdash. As soon as we do, we're going to offer the Korban. We'll offer the Korban Pesach even B'tum'ah. So now it says B'mo'ado. We should be offered B'mo'ado at its proper time. And it also says about all the Korbanot, Eila ta'asu l'Hashem b'mo'adechem. In your mo'ed. See the word mo'ed? It's similar to the word mo'ed. So therefore, we learned out, okay, Yafina mi Pesach dichtibe b'mo'ado. We learned from Pesach it says mo'ado. V'doche et hatuma kisherov ha'kahal tameim. When most of the kahal is tamei. Because we learn, ish ki yet tamei. This is what we just said. A person is tamei. Yachid nidche. Ve'en tzibor nidchim. And the yachid is doche. But the tzibor is not doche if they're tamei. Uba korbanot tzibor. We just learned this. Eile ta'asu l'Hashem b'mo'adechem. Remember we saw that in the pasuk. As it says in Pesach, b'mo'ado. And from there we learn, the aval gav de kravin b'tumah. Even though they're karev, ein echalim b'tumah. So they're offered b'tumah. All these korbanot are brought if we're tamei. But they're not eaten in Kurtam, and that's our Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, and it's a long introduction, but I think it's important to understand the Mishnah. Chamisha dvarim ba'im b'tumah ve'enan ne'echalim b'tumah. 5 types of korbanot are offered b'tumah, because we learned out from the pasuk the connection to Korban Pesach, but they're not eaten b'tumah. I mean, the Kohanim don't eat it. What are they? Ha'omer. Okay, that Omer is the korban that's brought on the first night of Pesach. On the second night of Pesach, to allow the chadash. It's brought from Se'orim. Okay, and the Kohanim eat the rest of it. But if it's brought in Tumah, the Kohanim don't. Shtei alechem are the 2 chalot that are brought on Shavuot to allow Chadash in the Beit HaMikdash. The Kohanim eat the shtei alechem. V'lechem hapanim, this we know, the lechem hapanim are the showbreads that were offered on the Shulchan. The Kohanim ate them. So if everybody's tamei, you still do the lechem hapanim, you don't eat them. V'zirchei shalmei tzibor. Okay? The kvasei atzeret, the two rams that were brought as shlamim on Shavuot itself. Here we are. Kivsei atzeret. The kvasim that are brought on Shavuot. She'ein shlamim achayim on tzibor. These are the only shlamim brought on tzibor. U'si'irei Roshei Chodeshim. There's a si'ir chatat echad that you bring. The si'ir is the goat that's brought on Rosh Chodesh, and it's also brought on other holidays. So all these si'irim, part of them were offered on the Mizbeach, and the rest were eaten by the Kohanim. So all of these b'chamisha dvarim, these 5 types of korbanot, when the tzibur, when the community is tamei, we still ba'in, they're still offered, but then the Kohanim can't eat them. Only when the tzibur is tahor, when the Kohanim are tahorim, then they can eat the korbanot. But what about the korban pesach? We know korban pesach is dochet tumah. Pesach sheba betumah, but if the korban pesach is brought in tumah, nechal betumah, it is eaten betumah. Shelo ba mitchilato ela ala achila. These other korbanot tzibur, they're offered for the tzibur for whatever reason. But the pesach, lo ba mitchilato, it only came, originally it was only offered la achila. The whole mahut, the whole essence of the offering of the korban pesach is eating. Let's look at the bar tunura. Shenitztava, when we were commanded ikar mitzvah pesach la achila nitztava, we were commanded to eat it. Dichtiv ish lefi ochla, ish lefi ochla, a person should eat it. V'chi sharye rachmana la'atuye betuma, when the Torah permitted us to bring this korban in tumah, mi ish nidcha ve'ein tzibor nidchin, right? A person is dochanat tzibor, adata lemichle sharya. So when we learned out that the korban pesach is offered in tumah, that when we learned out from these psukim, ish, when a person is tamei, but not a tzibur, that's to do the essential korban, which means to eat it as well. That's why korban pesach sheba betuma nechal betuma. It's also eaten betuma. We'll stop here. Dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. And you can email me if you have comments or questions. Have a good day.